Now that there's some understanding about using the databases, I want to make sure that I'm going over the information about what's required for other sources should you be using the internet or other ways to find information if you're not getting all three articles from the library databases. So, one thing that you need to make sure is that you must be getting your information from credible sources. So, that means don't be using blogs or um, like YouTube videos or things like that that are coming from just someone's opinion or that that aren't themselves like experts or a reputable source. So one good place to find articles can be major newspapers and news outlets like the New York Times, USA Today, etc. You can also get writing from experts. So if there is a blog from like a professor and they're or a researcher or journalist and they're writing about something that they're an expert on, then you can use that blog post. But yeah, so just think about if the person is well qualified to discuss the issue, and then you can use that source. Sometimes when you're evaluating whether or not a source is going to work for your paper or whether it's going to be credible enough, sometimes it depends. So, for example, if you're looking up information about a company on their website, like if you're looking at the Starbucks website, um, one thing that you can use is they may give some information about their history, their what when they were founded, who their current CEO is, things like that. And it's fine to use information like that that is a little more neutral, that isn't really giving an opinion or anything like that. But what you would want to avoid is information that you can't, information about like how ethical the company is, if they're giving praise or things like that. Even if it comes from a different source, you'd want to probably try and dig a little bit deeper. Like if they're quoting, like, top coffee company of the year or something, you might still want to look into it and see if there's more information, just because they're going to be biased about the information they're presenting. So just make sure that you're being careful with that. If you want to give, you can go like, a step further or something. And if you want to do something like say, oh, Starbucks thinks of themselves as an ethical coffee company because they quote that they're the best, like the most ethical coffee company in the world in 2018. You could talk about how maybe that's not true, even though they say that's what their position is. So that's just a whole other level that you can think about. But again, just be careful with what you're sorting, what sources you're using, and things like that. You might be thinking about how to find tips for, or if you need to find some information for other articles, if you need to find, if you have ideas, or maybe if you have a situation where you need to still do some research for your article. There's a few different ways to do that. One thing is using Wikipedia. One thing that is great about Wikipedia is they give their sources. So while you can't use Wikipedia itself, you can't use the information itself, you can use the information that they list on their on like the you can use the sources that they list in general. So let's see if they have so I tried typing in CSR in Wikipedia and it didn't come up with the corporate social responsibility. Here we go, corporate social responsibility. So you can go here and one thing that's nice is that if you think an idea is interesting, so for example, from an ethical perspective, some businesses will adopt CSR policies and practices because of ethical beliefs of senior management. For example, CEO may believe that harming the environment is ethically objectionable. So that can be something that you think that idea is interesting, and then you can look at the link. There's a little number, and that pulls up a link, and what you'd be able to do is find the source that it's from. So it looks like it's from Patagonia's Philosopher Kings. So that's the title of the article. So, and look, it opens up, and New Yorker's a good, New Yorker's a good publication to get articles from. So you can read this and see if that is an idea you want to use, and you can use that source. Another thing, we'll go back to the Wikipedia article, is that you can just look at all the sources. Read through some of the titles, think if one of those sounds good, and you can see that the blue text is going to be the link to the website that has the article. So a lot of these have information, and for some of these they're going to be available through the database. So you can just copy the title or something like that and then go to the database and find the article, and then you've met the requirement of one of your articles. So that's Wikipedia. Also, if you're having trouble with the databases, sometimes you can use Google search, and that can point you to an expert whose name you could look up using the using the library databases. So, and then there's Google itself, google.com. So that's a good place to go. There's also Google Scholar, so that's scholar.google.com, and what that does is that gives you access to different resources, that gives you access to academic journal articles. I don't think it has too many things like newspaper articles, but it does have the academic journal articles. Not all of them do you have access to, but Google Scholar is kind of neat because it has some of the same properties that the library databases have, where that if you were to find an article such as corporate social responsibility revisited, redefined, what that would mean is that might be something that you're interested in, but you can see it's from 1980, so that's kind of old. But you can see that there's a bunch of articles that cite this. So you could go, like, I want to see the ones that are cited, that cite this article, that use it as one of their sources in their bibliography. And then if you wanted to go and see, like, just the ones since 2015, you could go and I clicked that by clicking over here since 2015, and you can find these different articles. So you have here's determinants of corporate social responsibility, CSR disclosure in developed and developing countries. So you can click on that. Let's see if that takes you to the article. Look, we've got the article. That's wonderful. So you can download that. You can also see, like, if that's a title that you're interested in, you can even see, like, oh, is this something that's available in the library databases? So let's go. I'm going to the library. I've copied the title, and let's see. Yep, it is there. So determiners of corporate social responsibility disclosure in developed and developing countries, literature review. So you see this article is available through the library databases, and even though you found that using Google Scholar, you can use that. That's one of your articles for the databases. And when you're using the databases, one thing that's important is that you're going to want to get the citation from here. So you can just copy the citation to the clipboard. So you have that. One thing I'm going to want also is the permalink. So we'll go over that a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you that you can use you can use Google Scholar to help you find articles, or sources or something like that. Another thing is you can use bibliographies. So let's go to just this. I should have clicked that. So we've got let's see, I should have clicked on the PDF because that lets me look at the whole thing. And when I see bibliography, I mean, look at the end of the paper. And I think that if you you can look at what other articles they've read and see if there's an article that looks interesting to you that you can use in your own writing. So that means that maybe one of these looks really interesting. So the effect of ownership structure on corporate social responsibility. I'm not quite sure what that means, but if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, then you can try, copy and paste it and see if that's an article that turns up for you. All right, so another thing is that I encourage you to check out educational pop culture. So there's a few different examples of videos you can watch from Adam Ruins Everything, Patriot Act with Hassan Minaj, and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. So while I wouldn't say you should use those as your sources, the thing is they talk to experts, they reference things that are reputable sources. So for example, John Oliver sometimes shows clips from BBC. That's a good source that you can use. For example, Adam Ruins Everything. If we watch he's got a video about shoes, Tom's shoes. We're gonna fast forward through it for a little bit, but you can see that, let's see. So if we go here, we can see Fraser Garth Economic Journal. So what he's talking about here is that in this video about Tom's shoes is that giving shoes or making clothing donations to countries in Africa hurt the local economy. So if that's an interesting idea, an idea that you want to use in your writing, what you can do is, you don't have all the information here, but you can kind of check it out. So I'm going to do Frazer, Garth, and then what was that? I hope I've spelled that right. Fraser Garth Economic Journal. So let's, Fraser Garth, Economic Journal. See if that pulls it up. Okay, yeah, that looks like that's going to be what we wanted. So I think we're looking for volume 11, 532. Is that what? Yep, volume 11, issue 532. So that's the article that they were mentioning in that movie, or in that clip. So that means that you can get this article from the databases, and if you want, you can see if that's something that's useful for you. So you can see there's a bunch of different ways that if you're searching for articles, like think about whether or not they're good or going to be useful for you. And then the other thing you want to think about is how to find those articles. So hope that's useful and you're able to find those articles.